So I was talking about one of the misfits. She's a female misfit about merch. Or we might be doing merch coming up. And she's like, "Oh, t-shirts and dildos." And I thought we were just going to do dildos, but t-shirts is actually a pretty good idea. And she liked the idea of that. And then I mentioned how you came up with the idea of tumblers, and I thought, well, really, anything's a dildo if you're brave enough. So we just make it the Misfit Office Dildo Tumbler, and I think we should brand it that way, like heading into Christmas. Is that? But you said
Thank
you
you
wore
to
the
the female listener that gave Chris this idea.
I won't out her, but she'll know exactly who she is. But you were saying what? You wore the t-shirt to the gym, the test t-shirt to the gym.
Yes, we got the test prints back, and I wore a test print to the gym. Saw one of the guys I normally see there this morning, and he goes, "What's a professional misfit?" I said, "That's my podcast."
Friend, let me tell you, yeah.
Yeah. I said, "That's my podcast." And then he proceeded to, while I was doing my bicep curls, read the back of the t-shirt. So he got a good kick out of it, and he asked for one, so that was
a winner. Because you don't want to be the guys like, "Hey, have you listened to my podcast? Like, I heard the podcast." No.
I was like, it's for the podcast, but then I didn't mention another word. I just did my set, and he was reading my shirt, and it was like, sure, all right.
But all right, fuck, roll the credits. From Sydney, Australia, all the way to Portland, USA, two misfits hang out after class to riff on the B-sides of professional life. These are your professional misfits.
Yes.
I want to keep that in. Fuck. All right. All the way from Sydney, Australia, I'm your host, Christopher Sellers.
From Portland, Oregon, I'm Brody Ipox.
And we are your professional misfits, where we riff on the B-sides of professional life, and we're at episode 18, Misfits. So season 2, as you know by now, all about relationships, family, personal, professional, everything in between. And this is the voted episodes. We threw this out on social media for you guys. You had your say. And what we landed on was, what are our misfit rules for life? So if we're talking about personal, like in our personal relationships as misfits, as individuals, do we have guidelines or a moral code, or like what are the rules for being a good misfit in the world? And so that's what we're going to get into. And I guess I think it's an interesting time to talk about it when you've got, people like Dr. Jordan Peterson laying out, here's 10 steps of how to be a man. And next week we'll hopefully be talking to Travis about relationships with faith. And we all know there's 10 commandments and a big book of rules to follow. And most religious foundations have a similar sort of, here's the book, here's the text, here's the rules which you follow in order to be a good person. So I'm wondering, for us, Brody, like, do you are you raised in the rules and that's just how you live? Do you explore a little bit and find your own? Or are there other ways to go about it? And I've got another question that we'll get to later in sort of the episode, but where do you sit on this? Like, every man's got to have a code, right? So do you have a code? And if so, what's involved?
We talked a little bit before coming into film today, and I told Chris that I was like, I've actually got to list these out in my head, because I think all of us does. I think we all do. I think there's and maybe if it's not so strict as a code, but there's guidelines, I think, that you give yourself, lines that you're not willing to cross, boundaries that you have in place, those kind of things. It was weird how quickly they came to me, though.
Really?
Because, I think everyone operates on their own basic principles. And
sort of that unwritten thing that unless you're asked in a podcast, like, you're not going to
totally right
right out.
hadn't even acknowledged it, and then really, like I said, the quickness that they came to me and kind of the simplicity of them was like
Right.
that was cool for me to realize that it can be that easy to put some things in place for yourself that are easy to follow.
All
Or
right. So give us the top 3, 4, or 5 that like jumped out to you just for the Misfits
okay,
at
how
home.
about the top three? um Respect is given, trust is earned, and love is law.
Oof. That's a
Those
tight little trilogy.
that and like I said, it's weird how easily they came, because I've said all this shit to myself. You know what I mean? I've had instances where I'm adhering to the rule and not necessarily realizing, and
Mm-hmm.
then so yeah. Yeah, respect is given, trust is earned, and love is law. And those are probably my top three, and they're the easiest, most basic, and I think the most true to keeping you safe, right? And
Okay.
that's not a bad place to be, I think, in this day and age, in this world, and things like that. I think a lot of people lack one of the three, and that seriously hurts you. I think in any one of them is a deficit. You don't have trust around you. You feel insecure and anxious and worried all the time. You
Mm-hmm.
don't
Mm-hmm.
have respect. You don't feel validated. You don't feel seen. You don't feel heard. You don't have love. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what you have if you don't have love, because I'm lucky and blessed enough to have that in my life. So yeah, those are my top three, and I think they're so fundamental to me. And it's funny that you said that. Like, are you raised with them? Are they given to you? Though I think truly, from what I picked up as a kid without being told, because it wasn't my dad
Right.
saying those
Here's the
three
rules.
rules.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
It wasn't. It was just observation.
yeah.
It was observation, and those things seem to be fundamentally most important to my family. And what's strange is I didn't realize how much I admired them for it until I started trying to operate like them under their rules. You
Yeah,
know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? And it's uh it's tricky. It's tricky. You even got the rules, right? And you got the pamphlet in front of you. That doesn't mean you're gonna fucking operate by them. You know what I mean? I can tell you more than once there's been
Yeah.
times that I did not give respect when it probably was deserved. Or
Oh, come on. Like any on paper,
right, right,
easy enough to follow.
right,
Put it into practice, and I'm sure anyone that follows any kind of faith will echo that sentiment.
right.
Most times these kind of codes are written as ideals or guidelines or
Thank you.
destinations. They're not.
Ideals is what I've been trying to get at. Yeah.
Yeah, right, right, right.
So what are your three?
Well, that's the thing. It's interesting to hear you describe it and like, oh yeah, man, so easy. And I had the probably exact opposite experience. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
right. And so for Misfits at home, like we discovered this morning that we were doing this episode, so it's not like we had weeks to plan. But I was having my coffee, I was listening over, reviewing one of our earlier episodes with Mathilde and all that sort of stuff, and thinking on this, and from what similar to what you were describing, it's like, well, I know I've got them in here somewhere, but I don't actually know what they are. Like nothing immediately jumped out at me because my weird little brain is like everything's so subjective and relative, isn't it?
Mm.
Like it's for argument's sake, if we take a commandment like thou shalt not kill, for instance, and you go, yeah, that makes sense. Like murder's bad, right? And then my fucking brain goes, yeah, but not always. And detours down this path of like, what if? And so it's vague as all fuck to go. Well, I think I want to. I think I live like a good person. I try not to lie or to steal or to cheat or to just all these sorts of things. But there's still times where I probably have, and there's time. Fuck, there's times when I do it as a game to test whether I can get away with it. It's
I
say
know the exact. Yeah.
Okay, right. So it would be hypocritical of me to say, "Oh, here's my 3, bam," and I'm a fucking saint, you know. Um, but look, I try to I try and have respect for people. I try and give them the benefit of the doubt. Hearing your 3 straight off the bat was like, well, respect is given, and my immediate reflex is like, nah, fuck that, respect is earned. You know, uh, for instance, I'll come to you with on equal footing, you know, but it's not just because you're older or more senior or in some sort of position or whatever else. Like, no, you don't command respect from somebody.
So it's
So I
interesting.
guess, yeah, I guess. So this episode is going to be Brody's got his morals locked down, and Chris is discovering his. Um,
I don't know, Misfits. I don't know if I've got them down. I've just got them recognized. I've got them
right.
recognized.
And
It's funny too that you say that about respect, because I did want to touch on that a little bit, because
mm,
that was what I was exactly the way that you just framed it was the way that I was taught, and that doesn't sit well with me. It does not sit well with me. If you're a fat lazy fuck, just because you're older than me, why in God's good green earth do I have to respect a
just
fucking
respect your
thing?
elders, you know. And it's an interesting one as well, where maybe if we're it's an interesting one where respect for women, like boys predominantly were raised as, you know, you will respect, you must respect X, Y, and Z. And by and large, I think that's a good thing. Like, respect for people in general is a good thing. However, one's gender also does not give you a pass on shit behavior, right?
No. So the reason that that's why I phrased it like that, and
Right.
I knew you were gonna say, I knew you were gonna say something, because respect is given to me in context means exactly what you and I are talking about. I'll meet you on equal footing.
Mm-hmm.
There are instances where innately, I think even subconsciously, it's kind of like a little programming thing where I'll inherently give you more than maybe I should. But at the same time, when I say it's given, you have to be the person that's going to receive it too.
Yeah. And I said, and it is transactional. It's recognizing that, and
It is.
you know,
It is.
and
And people will come at me for that. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. I think the fact that people feel that, because look at, I mean, in this day and age, for me at least, especially being, I'm raising an 11-year-old. He's almost a teenager. You know what I mean? So I'm around quite a few of those kids that age. The I don't want to phrase it like I'm bashing that generation, because they have a fuck ton of potential. It's almost like a sense of entitlement. Like, I've been told that I will be treated with respect. I've been told that I can do anything I want. I've been told I'm special, so I'm special. I've been told, I can do anything, so I can do anything. And again, in context, that's not very a fucking healthy statement. You know what I mean? I can do anything. Yeah, you can. Should you do anything? No, probably not.
see,
Not at
yeah,
all.
I don't. I wonder about that as well, because like in even of my generation, especially here in Oz, like the message was like, you can do anything if you put your mind to it. You know what I mean? Like it's
But with the contingency of hard work.
well, that's implied, but
Not here. I
it was
don't feel that way.
okay, because and as I was heading out of school, the era of, well, everyone's a winner was starting to creep in. You know, everyone gets a trophy. Everyone,
Participation trophies, fucking all this shit. And
right?
to me, again, that's the if I'm being honest with you, and we're talking about strictly respect right now, that to me is disrespectful.
Mm.
You not only disrespect the winners, you are disrespecting everybody that fucking needs an honest answer. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna tell you what, if I as a kid was never told that I was shit at soccer, I'd probably still be playing soccer. And look, there's weird examples there where I'm like, okay, don't shut down
Yeah,
a fucking dream or a drive,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But at the same instance, if it's really not fucking there, I mean, I would rather have known. You know what I mean? And it did lead me into wrestling. It led me into rugby.
Right.
And those things had such a more substantial positive impact
Yeah.
than someone constantly telling me I suck at soccer. You know what I mean? Or
I,
someone giving me a fucking ribbon for being on the
or
team.
or no, or the classic arts thing of like, no, you're great, you're really good, like you're doing so well, like thumbs up. And then once you move out of school and you realize life, economics, jobs, relationship don't work that way. Like there's no good enough is fine when you're solo, but
Right, right.
you know. So,
Yep.
but all right, but yeah, okay. So moral codes, interesting. Here's a question.
Okay.
Here's a question because it's and again we touched on Jordan Peterson earlier, and that's
Mhm.
I guess that was specific to men and boys because he stepped into this space of like, well, where are the male role models?
Yep.
Like they're absent, and like where are the guidelines for life? You know, and they
Just
seem.
for the listeners, Jordan B.
Mm.
Peterson, go look him up if you need to. 25-year clinical psychologist, moved into public speaking, those kind of things. So that's
Tad,
who we're
look,
talking about.
tad controversial, and I'm
Definitely, it's definitely controversial.
especially now because he seems to have swung towards the right wing conservative, and all this shit aside. But so before all of that, like
Yeah.
observing the body of
Mhm,
work,
mhm,
this was the
mhm.
space that he entered into in a few of the books that he wrote, and this is
Yeah.
what we're addressing in terms of having a code or guidelines to live by. I guess, and I joked about it earlier about the classic story of like, well, every man needs a code to live by. I wonder, like, for our female misfits,
Mm,
do you get a code? Do you get your own,
interesting.
right? Do you get your own set of rules? Are you misfits like us and sort of make it up as you go along because you find your own way? Because from what I've observed in many other institutions, the female rules and guidelines for life are you'll obey the man,
Hmm, hmm,
right?
hmm.
And if you're a misfit, no fucking chance that works for you, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
and rightly so. So I'm wondering if where's the female Jordan Peterson? Or,
Mm.
or are there a ton of feminist writers that we're unaware of? But then I wonder, yeah,
He's got a
feminism,
daughter. He's got a daughter
yeah,
that talks publicly.
he
Um,
does. Um, and
I feel
and
like
is
such a douche when you bring this kind of stuff up because not that I wouldn't think about these things or care about that side or females in general. It's just I realize I'm such a fucking dude. I'm
well,
I have no fucking idea.
well, same, but I'm asking because I don't know. And look, I'm as vague on my not moral compass, but a clear moral guidelines of how I view the world. But that's one of the first thing that jumped out to me. Like it is that classic. Well, every man's got to have a code, and stick loyalty and respect and trust, and or like go out and we've talked about it in other episodes. Like go out and protect and provide
Yep,
for your partner and your family.
yep.
And when I'm in the camp of fuck that, and and my partner and my queen will protect and provide with me, right? So if I took the feminist approach of like, well, I want an equal, that comes with rights and responsibilities, and one of the responsibilities is you'll be my equal. And so I'd be interested again, like misfits, especially what's female misfits. What's your take? Or do you identify with the fact that we kind of beg, borrow, and steal from other places and things that we like, and we sort of mash together our own version
Right.
of a moral code and a compass and what works for us. And maybe if we get into this a little bit as well, like obviously it's going to be shaped by the people, the family, the cultures, and the relationships that we're in. And I wonder if it's relative. B. I wonder if like the let's say the professional code and arrangement that we have together in terms of accountability and responsibility and who does what while we're building this thing. Is that the same as what you have for Tiff and the boys? That was a smile. That was a knowing. That was a knowing smile.
Yeah, no, God, it's so
Or
funny you
should
could
it
say that.
be? Or should it
Well,
be? Is it fair to have a carte blanche set of rules for everyone and everything?
I don't know. It's so strange, and we're talking about this, and I don't want to sound so like chivalristic or like I'm from the fucking medieval era, like but I believe in roles. I believe that they change. I believe that there's equals, which is like a mixture, a conglomerate of it. You know what I mean? So it's like something you said earlier before we started recording is like I think certain things are so subjective to individuals that regardless of the code that you apply, the situation might differ, right? And so I'm yes and no. Like yes, I do operate kind of with the same guidelines that I want things to be healthy and efficient and effective and there to be strong communication, but at the same time that raising boys and working on this with you raises different challenges. It's just
Yeah.
completely different arena that I step into, so and even in the same sense where I may give you respect, it looks different when I give the boys respect.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
And I really, I'm in personal belief that especially while raising boys, it should look different. They should see me respecting my equals in a different way. They should see the adherent appreciation I have for the people around me that have earned that. And then they're in a space to where they look and they watch that and they go, oh shit, I could earn that too. I could be, I
Yeah.
could do those. I could have that, And it's funny enough that we're sitting here talking about the boys. My 11-year-old. I'm watching him in middle school, so it's elementary for us, which is I think 5 years old until 10, and then it's middle school, which is 11 to I want to say 14,
Sure.
and then high school to finish out the until you're 8. And he's in middle school right now, and it's strange to hear the things that he talks about, and some of the things that he does focus on are the people around him that have no respect, that
Mm.
are rambunctious or obnoxious in a way that doesn't feel good to everybody else, and he goes,
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy. And it made me want to ask you, I'm not trying to sidetrack here, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's in my head that the way that we build these things, would it not be fair to say that sometimes even with the example that you're given, it might be the opposite road that you take?
Uh, yeah. Yeah. I think I hear what you're saying. I took another note here early when you were talking earlier about your three. And so I was writing furiously. And the note was like, well, if you don't ask, if you don't look, and if you don't challenge, you're just going to accept what you're given. Right. And what I mean by that is hearing from what you were talking about and referencing directly to, let's say, young men online that are extraordinarily angry, lonely, frustrated, and a lot of other just unhappy
Yep.
with their
Yep.
life. And generally, they tend to blame. And generally, they tend to blame women for the myriad of reasons why they're unhappy. And this is and it's always some clown that goes, do your research, think for yourself. And it's like, when I do think for myself, I disagree with you. And then it's the backhanded, like, you're just a sheep. And like, no.
Oh, bro, I can't get.
Okay, so yeah, so we're not going down that. We're not going down that rabbit hole. But
No.
this is the same thing. Like if you were, let's say, you were raised in a particularly religious family, that's you're going to accept that wholly. like, and until you start to ask, or you start to look around and reference the world, and until you start to challenge beliefs and ideas, um, you will just accept part and parcel. This is the moral code that I was born into, and it's immutable. And I guess I reject that in the nicest possible way, because you can there are parallel lessons to be learned anywhere and everywhere, and it's the this binary belief of my way is the right way and only way. Yeah, and we all have, and we've gone through times in our lives when we've had this belief and perspective. I'll give a classic example. I went to acting college with a nice Christian girl who, nice Christian girl, nice Christian values, all those sorts of things, and had this discussion one afternoon where I said, well, look, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't take any drugs, try to be a good person, I don't beat women, all these sorts of things. Arguably, I'm a pretty good Christian. Arguably,
Mhm.
right? The only difference between you and I is I don't accept, Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, and all of that. Does this mean I'm going to hell? And without blinking, she was like, yes. Uh, okay. So as an example, so I can tick all the moral boxes.
That's such a narrow Christian belief. Oh.
Well, yeah, and maybe we'll get into this with Trav, and I'm sure not
Mhm.
all Christians. I use this as an example of, like, I
Yeah,
can
no.
demonstrate.
I would argue that a lot of them are, though.
I could demonstrate, the moral behaviors, arguably, and I'd like to think I stick up for people where they need it and call out bullshit and injustice, and I would like to think I'm that person. I've got into enough fights over it, so I'll say I'm that guy. But it's a lot of the times it comes down to, because you don't see the world as I do, or if you're not part of our club, then no. Then you're not good.
Mhm.
You're
Yep.
not right. You're not moral. You
Yep.
are. If you're not white, then you must be black. There's no.
Yeah, I really am excited to have that conversation with Travis. I mean, and one of the reason being is same thing for this, like the rules and kind of the moral compass that lie within religion and spirituality. Good Lord, I think people are so uh, misguided, and it's just the information and the examples that are out there. And you know me, we've talked about this. I'm weird, where it's like, yes, you could call me a Christian because I have some of those similar beliefs, but I also sit with people like you, to where it's like, if there was a creator and he did design a purpose for every individual, and they lived their lives in accordance to what was happening, and again, like you're talking about, had a moral compass and were of service and created joy and impact. The fuck you mean they're going to hell because they didn't? It should, yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
sit well with me. It doesn't sit well with me. And
Or can I play the get out of jail free card on my deathbed and go, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I accept everything, and I'm a bad
which
person.
all of those Christians that you were talking about would say yes.
Right. Amazing. Amazing. There's a great fable. Oh no, it doesn't. It's completely off topic. We're sticking with moral codes. This isn't about religion. It just so happens that It just so happens that the purpose of religion, ladies
Is
and
to
gentlemen,
establish a moral code.
thank you, is a social moral code. Us in
Yep.
the village, we're all going to agree to play by these rules. Cool.
Yep.
Don't fuck my wife. Cool. I won't fuck your wife. Cool. Great. Don't steal from me. Don't kill my kids. Thank you. Yes. We won't go into the more obscure obscure rules of like wearing mixed threads or.
Do you know what's hilarious? Is I was literally, I had my Bible this morning. I'm in Leviticus right now, and that part in the Bible.
He's amazing. Yeah.
Literally what Chris is talking about.
It
and
is.
Some of the fucking rules. Like,
Old Testament doesn't count. Old Testament doesn't count. We'll just rewrite everything. Anyway, but it's, yeah. But look, I have studied a bit of Buddhism because I thought the concept of karma was appealing to me at a certain time, and understanding how actions and reactions and all those sorts of things, that's an influence on like my outset in philosophy. I really appreciate, and we'll probably get into this more with Trevor, philosophy's probably played a bigger part of my view and moral code than say any religious following per se. And I really appreciate the works of Alain de Botton. He's an Irish philosopher. He's written about a dozen books. Consolations of Philosophy is basically my Bible. And in another book of his, it's a Religion for Atheists. And he makes the point. His parents were Jewish. His father was a staunch non-practicing Jew. But anyway, the point was he makes the argument, it's like, well, why can't we borrow what we like from each religion to create our own sort of moral guide and code? And he draws on like something that Christians do have that a lot of other religions don't have, is the practice of confession. Like to be able to go to a trusted advisor anonymously and go, I feel shit. Like I feel heavy. I don't think I did the right thing. I'm confused. I just want to I just want some guidance. I just want some moral guidance. And here's a place and a person and an institution that encourages this practice. And a lot of other places don't. And in the secular world, surely doesn't. You go to a psych for that. Like, what?
Right.
You pay to go to a psych for that.
Right.
Right? So surely this is a value in our lives, you know? And then over here, like, these people have these practices. So he sort of makes this case. And I guess this gets to the practical part of our discussion of like, how do we do that for ourselves? Right? If we examine our relationships and we understand that our parents' relationships probably isn't ours, or the way that we work and this culture and the people that I'm with isn't exactly mine, or, you know, I have different beliefs, you know, I might be spiritual, but I don't believe in fairies. I might be, you know, Mathilde last week, big into astrology and visualization, this sort of thing. And I, you know, not my bag either. So how do we find it?
I think it's a lot of sifting through the shit. It's bizarre because old me would be triggered by the word atheist. Old me, because I fundamentally didn't understand, and it's kind of the way that you just framed it that started having me back away from hating or despising or being triggered by that. And for the viewers, I'm not an atheist. I don't know much about it, but the more that I've talked to a couple friends that are, the more that I've done my research, and it's kind of like what Chris is talking about. It's not devoid of a moral code. It's not the void of a institution that could serve the better. It's that there's a disagreement with the institutions that are there. You know what I mean? And that's fine to me. I sat with it for a bit. I was like, I'm not mad at someone disagreeing with me.
It's also the assertion that you can be moral without religion. There's
and I would even argue that you should be.
Like, well, you know, I can't remember which series it was, but it was one of Ricky Gervais's series, and it's a skit where he's sitting in a cafe, or he might have been at work, and one of his colleagues was giving him shit about like, you don't believe in God, you don't believe in this and that, and he's like, why don't you just go out and rape and murder everyone? And he's like, I do. And she's like, what? He's like, I rape and murder exactly as many people as I feel like I should. And she looks really, really confused. It's like, zero. Like, the absence of an all powerful or whatever does not compel me to go. And even if there was one, it wouldn't prevent me. So how much power in a
Right.
right? So how much power does one individual have in themselves then to say, even without, a great punishing figure, I can still maintain the ability not to perpetuate or commit these heinous sins.
I know. Well,
You
I
know,
think I think you said it well earlier. It's just the fact that people don't understand what the construct of religion itself is. You know what I mean? And seriously, it is just that. It's a social construct. Like that's
and this is so, and I because I listened to
you
our
put
chat
it
with
so fucking well. Like I agree. I won't fuck your wife. You don't fuck my wife. Like we're
done.
good.
You know,
Like
um, but and so Matilda read something really interesting in our last chat, and she's like, look, but like where you start out. If you start out in a career that's sort of given to you, if you start out, let's say, if you start out in a belief system that's given to you, that's not a horrible thing. To have some sort of path
something
and
to
guidance,
challenge.
right? Some sort of path or guidelines in the beginning, surely gets you off to a decent start. It's whether or not you do challenge and you're allowed to challenge.
Perfect. That's where I was leading. It's like I'm in agreement with you. Yes, like I don't just leaving someone with nothing. Especially thinking about my boys. Um, weird kind of concept to sit with because it's not. I mean, it's generally not your role. You our goal is to leave them with something. And
Hmm.
for me, one of my biggest pieces with the boys is yes, I want to influence them, but the way that you just said it, I would rather guide them. You know what I mean? And again, challenge me. And if it doesn't sit well with you, I'm going to accept the challenge. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to hear you. I'm going to talk to you because the way that I am too. And again, if I believe in a higher power and everything happens for a reason, the the challenge that's presented before me, A, is an opportunity for me to test my faith, and B is an opportunity to grow my faith. Like
Hmm.
there's nothing, and that's the thing that I think doesn't sit well with me too as religion as an institution is I'm right, you're wrong.
This is the truth.
And I'm just saying, because look, again, I will not stay too long on this subject, but just
Hmm.
as, again, moral compass, guideline, guiding point, if so many people across the globe have come up with different systems, structures, and frameworks for essentially the same thing,
Hmm.
would it not just be that underlying energy is the connecting force that we're all talking about and we're all fucking hooping and hollering about? Like but when you shed everything away from that, it's humans that are doing that. It's not a higher power. And
Hmm.
again, this is where I'm different. And I'm sure I'll get come at for being a weirdo Christian, but hey, I'm a professional misfit, so it is what it is.
You're allowed to have a different take. You're allowed to have a different take. And then this has just occurred to me as well. When we think about moral codes and how that evolves in society, and then it eventually hits a point where it becomes written down and legislated, and then we
Mhm.
have laws. So you can't do these things because, right? Now, what I've experienced firsthand, and I think is interesting, is that even though we have these guidelines codified and regulated and enforced, there's still this massive gap between what is legal and what is moral.
Oh, and think about how much shit is legal that's not fucking moral. I had this conversation the other day about taxes. I was like,
Right.
are you kidding me?
Right.
In any institution that you think that, especially the way that they're being used in today's day and age, is just, yeah, it's fucking bizarre. It's and you said this earlier. People just accept it, and
Mm.
it makes me want to touch more on when in your life, when in your set of code, your set of rules, do you start to challenge? What is it? Is it a breaking point? Is it a
Mm.
fucking
Mm.
realization? What at what point? Because I can't consciously tell you when I started saying these are this is how I live.
Yeah, I don't know either. There's a lot of stories out there about excuse me, about someone hitting a personal crisis, and they're forced to ask why, because the belief system they had up until that point doesn't match with the outcome and the reality that they're living, and that right, and that can be obviously traumatic for a lot of people. um I'm trying to think. I wasn't raised in a particularly religious household. No, fairly agnostic. We only did church for christenings and weddings and the occasional funeral. It wasn't impressed on us either way. It also wasn't discouraged.
Hmm.
So when I had
Interesting.
right, so I when I had a ton of Buddhist books on the shelf and was reading that and had my, sandalwood prayer beads and stuff. It was just like, okay, like, no, it wasn't put that shit away, you're a heathen or anything else like that.
Hmm.
It was, I guess, tolerated. My brother's not particularly religious either. And he's got a different moral code to me, you know? So I'm trying to think off the top of my head of circumstances where like I
Right, where a rule set in, right? You know
right,
what I
and then I
mean?
have stood up or like contravened it or something, but nothing's immediately jumping out at me, which doesn't make for good podcast dialogue.
That-
So
I wouldn't stress on that too much because I feel that it does. I feel like that again is the question, right? We can identify the rules, we can identify the things that justify our moral compasses, but what built them and
mm,
when, and I think it for you guys as listeners too. I mean, if you have an answer, because obviously this is something we're not clear on. It, is it a linear thing? Is it a compilation of time? Is there a universal statement that says this person will learn this at this time? You know what
and even
sets in?
what's though even what's interesting about that is even when I talk to other Christians, it's like even they don't have identical views on the way one should handle X, Y, and Z situation, which is interesting to me. But
Yeah, especially because we got a big book of rules that tells us how.
right, but again, like we'll ignore all of the Old Testament because that doesn't count, and we'll just stick to the stuff where it's Jesus and the boys, but not when he hung out with hookers, not when he hung out with hookers, not when he was like, give away all your worldly possessions, because evangelism is another
That's
thing.
that's crazy that you talk about that because that's one of the things that one of my rules is be yourself, right? And it's interesting that you pointed out the harlotans and the things that Jesus was around. Again, a lot of Christians don't understand that he accepted everybody for who they were. It didn't fucking matter if they were a whore. It didn't matter if they were a lazy fucking scumbag that beat his wife. Uh, that is I'm going to be honest with you. We talked about respect. So for me, it feels unrealistic, right? It feels unrealistic.
And that's one of those things. Okay, let's in terms of a moral quandary, like this whole turn the other cheek thing, you know.
Depends on the
Um,
situation.
and again, and if it go right, but if and right, so it depends on the situation. And if I go back to my earlier question to our female misfits, you know, you're stuck in an abusive marriage or partnership where, thou shalt, obey thy husband. How is that a fair exchange in the modern age, right?
I
And
don't
and
even give a
who
shit.
and
I mean, in
who would
any age.
advocate for that, right? Um, and so it's, yes, it's complicated, and yes, it's difficult, and yes, it's uncomfortable and fraught with all kinds of difficulties when you actively choose to step outside or separate or distance yourself from, what you've come from or what's accepted. um just realized right now that all of my gay, lesbian, and queer friends would have gone through all of this at a massively personal level, because there's few moral institutions that would accept them for who they were, you
Yeah.
know? And so then they've got to go and find their own community that's going to love and accept them for who they are. Um, we've talked about
Yeah.
unconditional once or twice, and that's, here's an example where someone would have to actively go and find it outside of their home or society.
Yeah. That's it. I'm going to be honest with you. That's a tough one. And I'm one that's to each that we've had this
Mm.
discussion deeply. To each their own, and I love people. I love people. So who you're fucking really doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
I love who you are as an
So long
individual.
as he doesn't fuck your wife, you're good.
Totally. If we can follow that agreement, we're good.
Ah.
But I will say this. It raises the question to me, like in discovery of the rules, it and again, I'm trying to phrase this adequately because I'm not trying to step on toes. Truly, I just at what point do we stop making our own rules? And again, not to say that just adopt what's there, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a weird. I don't know how to phrase it. I'm having
Well,
trouble here.
I don't know. I think it's a mindset thing. I think what I've noticed, it's a little bit off topic, but what I've noticed with older people and older generations is, you begin to age once your mindset becomes fixed, right? It's and
Wow.
right, I'm sure you've all met 80-year-olds who were fucking cool as fuck to hang out with, because they were still curious. They still wanted to learn. They wanted to listen. They wanted to share. They were still curious and had a flexible mindset about the world of I want to learn, and I want to experience, taste, touch, smell, all the things. You know, it's and I'm sure you've met 30-year-olds who may as well be 80, because it's like, I'm going to work the job, I'm going to do the thing, and it's just a completely fixed mindset. And they tend to shut out more than they let in, and I think that applies to things, to questions like this, because, like, well, you're going through it now. So, like, single Brody would have had a certain moral code. Brody as a dad, different moral, same guy, but adjusted moral code. Brody, a dad of four, adjusted moral code. Brody, with his first daughter on the way, is probably going to have another adjusted moral code to life, right? And that's, yeah. And then if you've had four boys and they've had a set of guidelines and you've modeled them, and now you're going to have a daughter, is it going to, so that's an interesting thing. And I know that my moral code from my 20s to now is drastically different, and that's shaped by a little bit of travel and relationships I've had, and that's something else as well. Just even experiencing different cultures. Talking to Matilda last week, like she was in Sri Lanka a couple of weeks ago. I've traveled into countries where I don't speak the language, and there's like certain social customs and things that you do here because that's normal there, which is a little bit outside your comfort zone, but that's why you travel, you know. Um, so the world is bigger than just one fixed perspective.
Yes,
Well,
it is.
perhaps.
And that's exciting to me. You're going through that, and I was like trying to be anxious and protective of anything that I was thinking or had thought in this conversation. And I was like, you're going through the evolution that I've done, for myself as a father. And then again, with the little girl that's coming, it's just fucking exciting. And I wish that's something that I could physically make, I could create, and I could hand to somebody and say, this is what it's about. It's being excited about the shit that's to come. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying I'm going to have it all figured out. I'm just excited. I'm just excited. And that's, I think, an important rule that I'm establishing for myself is to live in that excitement. Life is exciting. And it's fascinating how many people choose that it's not.
I think over the course of this discussion, I think I might have found one or two of what my guidelines would be. And the first one from just now is, yeah, like, do no harm. At least try not to, you know. And I mean, I'll start with me. Like, Chris, maybe be a little bit easier on yourself because I'm the most vicious, fucking demanding authoritarian of my own expectations, which is a bit ridiculous at times. So we'll start there. But I know I actively try not to harm others directly or indirectly. And I know this because there has been times where I've thought, I'm always the nice guy. No, fuck you. This one time, I'm gonna fucking stick it to you. And I hated myself for it. And for me, I learned these sort of situations, not a good fit for me. That, look, not to say that I won't do it again. There might be future instances where revenge is absolutely justified, but so far there hasn't been one. The second one, which has been a guiding principle probably since I was in my early 20s, was actually trying to be a better version of myself. I've always really there's way off topic. There's an ideal of the samurai, and it's a mythical ideal because it doesn't actually exist. But the reason why they were idealized is because they would symbolize like martial prowess, but also they mastered poetry, they mastered calligraphy. They were rounded
Stretch their
individuals,
minds.
right? And so this, even though the reality of the samurai where they were bloodthirsty fucking enforcers, let's not confuse those two, but so there's an ideal of being a Renaissance man who could be um, intelligent, skilled at many different things, and have a strong moral center that doesn't necessarily need to be tied to a dogma, and independence and autonomy has always been important to me. So if that sort of meshes into a sort of ideal of whom I want to be and where I want to go, the people I want to surround myself with, and hopefully not directly hurt or damage others on the way, then that's the path I'll probably opt towards. And in that is an intimate understanding of my own responsibility, that this journey and this path is mine. I'm not entitled to anything from it, but I am entitled's not the right word, but I should be grateful for the rewards that I gain from my hard work. That
Yeah,
sort of personal responsibility.
yeah, yeah. It made me think of two things you saying that. I think that for the Misfits, the last thing that I'll say is make it simple. I mean, really, you can go through and you can write these rules out, you can do whatever you need to do, but at the end of the day, if you can come up with 1 to 5, and what's interesting about your rule is just to be better than I was yesterday, it encompasses so many things subjectively, right? It's just a beautiful fucking rule, and it's simple, and it's fucking accurate, and it's real. So the simpler you guys can make this for yourselves, do it. I mean, it's only going to serve you, and you're going to be able to stand by those rules in confidence more often. The second thing that it made me think is, speaking of Jordan Peterson earlier, one of the things that he talks about a lot, and I'm trying to remember the quote, I can't ever fucking remember it. It's something like, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
That's yeah. That's it.
And I agree. I agree. I agree. 1,010%. And you and I both, have come from abstract backgrounds where I think for us, the focus is the arts and media and growth and philosophy and mindset. But I did spend 2 years playing fucking rugby at state. I spent fucking 3 years wrestling. I boxed my way into a state championship. So like there's things we could kick your ass if we needed to, you know what I mean? But that's
Yeah.
not the principle that you operate when you are a warrior in a garden.
No, and that actually takes expertise to get to.
I think so.
That's a funny point, because once you train at anything, and then you raise yourself above average, and you become aware that, oh shit, I can do the thing, and then most people quit
Yep.
because they've achieved above average, their ego is satisfied, they can beat 90%, and whether it's music, whether it's painting better, whether it's speaking a better language, whatever it is, it's you raise yourself above average, your ego is satisfied, so you can step out. There's few, and this is what the quote is more directly driving at, is there's few that strive for excellence.
Mm.
And excellence is an endless pursuit. And if we're talking about moral codes today, it's an endless pursuit. It's unending. The information and your scope can be, unlimited, unbound for the rest of your life if you choose it to be. It's why we love speaking to guys like Paul Watkins in season 1, because he makes exactly this point. Like, discipline and excellence is an endless pursuit. You'll never get there, but you'll see some fucking cool shit on the way. And I think the same, Misfits, the same. If you take nothing away from this episode, because I know we talk about everything and we solve nothing, is if you want to craft your own moral code, or if you want to craft your own guidance in life, pick something, no matter how small, and commit to a form of excellence for that.
Yes.
Now, right? And so whether it's I want to be the parent. I want to. Here's another thing. I'll challenge you to make it not work. I'll challenge you to make it that, because the easiest solution is, well, I want to be the best account director I can be, and I'll take that away from you for now, until you realize that, no, that's actually the thing that I want to drive at. Okay, but that's my misfit challenge for this episode. Pick something. Pick one thing, big, small. Commit to excellence for that. See how you go.
I love it.
We'll wrap. It's almost an hour. We can wrap it up. Episode 18, episode 19. Do you know what's coming up next?
Only because we've talked about it 15 times in the episode.
I was going to say, if you drop the ball on this one, it's over. So I'm actually waiting for him to confirm. So we've talked it up over a couple of episodes. So I really hope it's you, Trav. It's you. Otherwise, Brody and I are talking about, relationships with faith, maybe even bringing a guest. We'll find out. But at least Misfits, that's the topic that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be, is there religion and all powerful? Is this a factor in your life? Maybe not. What does it mean for you? That's what we're going to be discussing. And I think it'd be really, really cool if Trav's available. Just waiting for him to confirm. B, is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to riffing on in the next episode?
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier. I'm a different breed. I know I'm a misfit, but I love being challenged in my faith because I think ultimately that's how I'll get to the truest form of my faith. So I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited.
I like that. In the meantime, Misfits, you can listen for free and you can watch us build on all the social platforms. You can support us, which would be really, really cool because we're about to step into season 3 and we're planning that for you guys now. So you can support us on Patreon. You can buy me a coffee. You can buy Brody new glasses. He's going to need them for season 3. I think by the time this comes out, maybe my book will be close to coming out, but we can talk about that at another time. We could talk about that in the recap. We'll talk about that in episode 20. Yes. Nice. So there's a teaser. Misfits. In the meantime, I've been Chris.
I've been Brody.
And you stay classy, Misfits. Commit yourself to excellence, and we'll see you on the next one.